It's the final edition of the Tyrconnell Tribune podcast for 2021. John McAtee here and Eamon McFadden. Declan's not with us this evening, so we wish him well for Christmas and the New Year, as we do to you, our readers and our listeners. And I'll do a bit of housekeeping first, because we have a big quiz. The Christmas quiz has 100 questions. You can spend Christmas and the New Year because you have several weeks to answer this, and the winner will get €250.
Ever popular quiz, John?
Now who's good to you? We have a lovely picture on the very front of the Tribune. Lights of love shine for Kevin and Shannon to live in Creeslough. Kevin Martin got down on bended knee to ask his partner Sharon Devlin for her hand in marriage, and this was up at Mary Horsky's Festive Lights the other night there in Kerrykeel up the top of Shanky. So I think that's the second time, and it's from the same area as well.
Aye.
So Mary, you must be having some effect on these.
The lights are
doing well all over the place. So best of luck to Kevin and to Shannon. We're going to look back a wee bit at the year in a kind of a way, because it's been a year for Micah, a year for Omicron, for the protocol, for the pandemic, for the lockdown, for Edwin Poots being the shortest living DUP leader of 21 days, and the retirement, the resignation of Arlene Foster. And now we have a new leader of the DUP called Paul Givan, whom most people have never even heard tell of. But Mike Eamon was the big story, really.
Yeah, it gathered serious momentum throughout the year as well. I think a lot of people didn't take that as serious. Nationally it wasn't viewed as a serious issue until people realised the scope and scale of it. But that was only because the people pushed that huge agenda. We covered how many times we covered story would it be?
We have been. It's been never ending.
Never off the pages.
It's never been off the pages between editorials, and of course the Micah Action Group became very proactive. Paddy Diver became the name that came to the forefront right across the country right throughout this year, because he delivered a whole new impetus and a whole new agenda into the urgency about Micah, and he brought it to a whole new audience, and tens of thousands of people have taken part in two huge rallies in Dublin. One around the 15th of June, it actually was Tuesday the 15th of June, and the other one was a Friday, the 8th of October.
To mobilise some amount of people?
That was the biggest one in mobilising people. In the meantime, we've had promises that were broken about getting some redress data out to the homeowners out of those meetings with the ministers' officials and members of the Micah Action Group. There was a promise that by the end of July the meetings would be ended, but that has dragged on just up until very, very recently, and we've come up now with a scheme that doesn't seem to add up for anybody other than a few people in government and a few ministers, including Charlie McConnell-Logue. There it is, full Micah redress, despite the fact that there's no evidence at all to suggest, no matter which way you try to analyse it or to account for it, there isn't full Micah redress contained within those documentations. And to think that come February that their expectation that the figures can be amended, the cost per square foot can be amended, that will happen provided the costs have gone up. It'll not lessen the costs for the homeowners, because if it's €145 a square foot right now as it is set down, it'll probably go up to 150, maybe 155. That would be entirely based on the increase in the actual costs of building. It'll not leave another cent in the people's pockets. But I was just reading a piece just sometime earlier on today. There's just a family there, the Noon family up from Minishone, and last Christmas was a bad one, but they were looking forward to a new home this Christmas time. Now they're just, I think it's Eileen Magnier has done that piece, they're no further forward really.
Yeah, and if anything, the house will be in a worse condition again.
The house is boarded up. It's not. It's not safe to live in it.
Not safe. You have to think of what the impact of. We've had this storm Barra and these different things, and we can see them houses crumbling away.
Well, the deterioration is very evident from what I can see in a lot of houses with the inclement weather that we have. We've not had serious gales. Those storms that hit us were relatively mild insofar as wind strength were concerned. 40, 50 miles an hour is not that serious up here in North Donegal.
Yeah.
We haven't had heavy gales, we haven't had constant 24-hour gales at 70, 80 miles an hour, not even at Malin Head. But Inishowen, because they seem to be affected by Micah much quicker than the rest of the county. And we don't know why that is. But the level of deterioration there is much greater than it is in the rest of the county. But it's like around Letterkenny, Milford, and down into Fannin, right across the southwest, the northeast, it's down into parts of the southwest. And it's not confined to one block supplier. It isn't, because it's in numbers of other counties. And while we await some resolution from the government, homes will continue to diminish. Costs will continue to increase, and people are left in a no man's land of despair. And the whole issue of ministers trying to push it down people's throats that the new redress scheme does mean 100%. There's no analyst, there's no accountant can come anywhere close to seeing how that can be justified or how it's even true. But it's this thing about everybody in government being on message, and it has to be the one message from them. And that reminds me of Catherine Zappone and the row about her way back in July when she was appointed the special envoy for freedom of expression.
Had a rumble on sometime there.
Imagine Ireland appointing a UN ambassador on the freedom of expression. There's very little freedom of expression in this country, given that everybody in government, and indeed large swathes of the media, who are very heavily reliant on the government and the various departments for funding, for advertising, all of that. If you're not on message, then you're in bother. So that doesn't really apply to the Tribune, so we don't give two hoots about them. Northern Ireland Protocol was relevant this time last year. It's probably more relevant this year. They're trying like mad to find some solutions to it by reducing a lot of the red tape and the jargon that's around it. And there's no doubt that the Northern Ireland Protocol could have been introduced in a much more civilised manner, not with the hundreds and hundreds of unnecessary regulations and delays that applied. But I would imagine that the EU, in trying to draft that legislation, and this is where this famous Lord Frost came into it, they made it so difficult that no other country might ever attempt to leave the EU ever again. And instead of that, they made it very difficult for the people of Northern Ireland. And it was unnecessary, it was uncalled for. And it probably will be resolved, although the DUP and their hinterland of support will never accept a border of any kind, let it be in their imagination in the Irish Sea or on dry land. So Jeffrey Donaldson and the DUP are facing into a difficult year because they have elections in May. They're behind in all the opinion polls. It's not quite clear, can the Sinn Féin party win that election? Can they get the First Minister? That remains to be seen. On the face of it right now, they seem to be on track to do that. But that's 6 months away yet. But as I said, Edwin Poots is back as the leader of the agriculture, and he has to try and now draft a piece of legislation of some kind that compensates for the loss from the Common Agricultural Policy. And that may not match what they might have got from the EU. It was also a year in the centenary of celebrations where Michael D. Higgins attracted a lot of attention by failing to travel to Armagh for that centenary to mark the
partition.
Yeah, to mark partition effectively. Or to mark the foundation of the state of Northern Ireland. And
many would argue it was never properly formed as a state, but
it was never properly formed as well. Again, that's another story. It's a long story, but I don't think too many people were in disagreement with him here on this side of the border. There's always going to be a certain cohort that would feel that those opportunities should not be missed, because they do add something to the impact of being accepting that element of inclusivity that we yearn for in this country. But it seems to be a very one-sided journey.
But I suppose at the heel of that hunt as well, though, I suppose that goes on to our other topic that we'll touch on, is the coronavirus. The Queen missed that very same function because of that.
The Queen missed it, and others missed it as well. But the fact that Michael D. Higgins missed it, and he was no way apologetic about it. So
I made it clear.
Like in fairness to the man, he's going to make up his own mind regardless.
he took a strong stance on it, and that's fair enough.
Like on this day, it's the first time since the pandemic began that infections in the UK have risen beyond 100,000. In fact, they're over 106,000. Similarly, France is heading in a similar direction. I'm not quite certain where we are at the moment. I haven't seen today's figures. This is Wednesday afternoon. But it's a Christmas of worry and restrictions for many, many people. It's the quietest Christmas, not only commercially, but it's the quietest Christmas out on streets and in towns and villages. Even in bigger towns and villages, Letterkenny and Derry and places like that, they seem to be notably quieter than they were in previous years.
The festive buzz is gone, John. It's people out doing the necessities, but it's not the same.
People are also attributing a lot of this to online shopping, and I suppose there's an element of that there.
Well, a big part of what goes hand in hand with all of that is the entertainment of people being able to go out to have a bite to eat or a few drinks or go and listen to some music or do something like that, and that's been effectively stripped away now.
Christmas parties are gone. The party nights have all but been wiped out. So people even a game of cards at 8:30 in the evening and down the local pub, we would have had numbers of those in Fannin. They're all gone.
That'd be early evening entertainment. Like, there'd be a later cohort again going out at 10 o'clock for a night's out.
Yeah. That's a different cohort, but there would be a mixed group of people that would go out for a game of cards.
It's gone.
That traditional winters game of cards, that is now gone. Pubs are locked down at 8 o'clock, and there's no way around that. So, where do people go? Do they sit at home? I doubt many of them won't sit at home. We all remember quite clearly what happened last Christmas. It was a very, very bleak time. It took months to get out of that, Schools did not get back fully functional until April. Let's hope it's not like that this time. This Omicron variant, whilst it's an ever-prevalent presence in our midst, and it is pretty contagious by the looks of it. It does seem that the numbers that's getting it are not that seriously affected, because numbers in hospitals, and particularly numbers in ICUs, hasn't greatly increased. Now, fingers crossed that they won't get any worse over Christmas and the New Year. I think most places are going to be closed down: schools, colleges, universities. A lot of workplaces are closed down from this evening, tomorrow probably, until early in the New Year. You'd have a better idea the next time we're sitting here doing this podcast. Are we beginning to see the threshold of it? Are we just looking towards the possibility that the threat may be diminishing? Let us hope so. We're also going to look at, in sport, of course, it was a great year for Limerick and hurling. You have affiliations down there, of course.
I do. My other half, she's a proud Limerick woman from across the road from the Limerick Stadium on the Ennis Road. It was like a dominant performance for the. Absolutely. They could maybe push on for a few more, but that was, I suppose, a way to have the shore up the success they had the year previous before a completely closed house. Do you remember those games were played in the mouth of Christmas nearly, and we just
hope that 2022 will bring less restriction and less threat. And you'd always hope that next year that a vaccination to prevent the disease may well be on the cards.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we're going to reach that phase next year, but let's hope that we do.
See, they've approved another new vaccine now, an American vaccine, so that's a fifth vaccine into the mix.
Yeah, they're all helping out, because obviously without the vaccinations, the death toll would have been astronomical and just unbelievable. It was also a big year, of course. The shock of the year was the Tyrone football team. This time last year, they were nowhere.
They suffered COVID.
They suffered massive COVID. Almost took them out of the All-Ireland series, but they came back and they won it in smashing form.
Oh, I deserved it.
The other big winner of the year, of course, Kelly Harrington in boxing at the Olympics, and Rachel Blackmore, who won before and after, and she became the sports personality of the year for the BBC.
For the internationals.
And after all that, we're going to go back and look back down to earth. Charles John Call has written a book, his memoirs, really effectively, or is it? It's not really, is it?
It sort of is not a biography or autobiography. And this is one definitely worth some viewpoints in this, that at 92 years, there's going to be a hell of a a life in there. You know, I'm just leading through it here. He's a well-known figure from the Call family, Port Nabla. He's just released his new book, Times Gone By, and that is a very apt title indeed. Particularly around his experiences in the area during the Second World War. That's a very fascinating piece of local history there that he can remember.
Well, he was born in 1929, so 39, 45. Just he was born in the aftermath of 10 years after the First World War ended.
Yeah.
So he has lived through a pretty turbulent period in life.
Oh, remarkable. Well, there's a lovely piece here by Moses that he has done that. The first time he saw a plane flying over towards Hornhead, that was the first time he'd seen a plane, and it was later that day, that's when they found out that the war had started, and that was the start of a very busy air traffic going past that area. So
probably found out accidentally because you didn't have a Sky News or BBC News 24. Many houses didn't even have a radio.
And not at all.
It was the bush telegraph in many respects.
And he's involved in all that traditional ways of life of fishing and curras and all that. That would have been the area would have been very famous for back that time. So
anywhere along the coast at that point, had them. But we're going to move on, and we're going to look at another phenomenal tractor run for Christmas time from Mulford over the Harry Blaney Bridge, I believe, across to the boardwalk. And it raised €10,000, and the tractors were the talk of the countryside. Hundreds of people came out to see them, and it's amazing the trouble that some people go to dress up their tractors. The ingenuity and the engineering that's involved with Christmas lights on the hubcaps.
That's good.
It's unbelievable, and this has become a whole national phenomenon, as we were saying last week. But in Donegal, we seem to have had a lead on that. There was a big one in Letterkenny on Sunday evening. Saw pictures of that on Facebook. And we'll see what they do in the new year.
And they're raising thousands for very good causes.
Yes, but it's a great way of raising money, and fair play to them.
Great, yeah.
It's also, we're also going to be looking at the Termon GAA yearbook. That is out this week.
That's out this week, and that's the Termon GAA Club have launched it. They have a great way of marking these special milestones and things like this. But this effectively was the brainchild of Chloe Callahan. She apparently is very active in going along to the club. Her mother is the PRO for the club. She takes a lot of photographs and that from everything from the under six right up to the senior men's and ladies and all like this. And this is formed in the backbone of this yearbook. Great way for them to record the events of each year, because once those things are committed to print and volumes of book,
putting together a yearbook, even I suppose a GA club embraces the whole parish, but you're down to your own parish literally, to do it.
Yeah, and then when you build up a little volume of them year on year, those early ones become historic documents in their own right. So she's doing a great service in preserving that to the club. So fair play to her.
We're going from that back to a seasonal story about selling holly for charity. And we have a picture of Mary Sweeney from Ballymaleel with her three granddaughters, Emer, Maisie and Chloe. They raised €250 for the Ramelton St Vincent de Paul, selling holly out around the loch side. Well done to them. And I mention them because they're also the grandchildren of Noel Sweeney, famous in music, folklore, an author. Anyway, whoever wrote this did it a bit tongue-in-cheek. Fortunately, the girls didn't accept their granddad Noel's advice to use the money to buy their granddad some beer for Christmas. We better put that away very quietly. We're going to go and look at what now? Probably the front page, because we're almost through this. The front page this week is looking at this 20 million property fraud. A man was detained in Mulford on Tuesday, that was yesterday now, and released without charge with a file to go to the DPP. And this investigation has been going on probably since the beginning of the year. That's a very major one.
I've seen it had been reported back earlier in the year in March, and it was even at an advanced stage back then, but it's fleshed out to include, apparently that's the 12th arrest in relation to it now.
That's the 12th arrest, yeah. It's in the hands of the Garda National Economic Crime Bureau at Harcourt Terrace in Dublin with the support of officers from Dundalk. And I think it's generally based in and around the County Louth area, but it's a very, very massive one. We're talking numbers of properties, financial institutions loaned money in mortgage for the purchase of 12 properties, and when the mortgage fell into arrears, the financial institutions pursued payment. But they discovered that the properties had been sold, and you're going to have to read the rest of that in the Tribune, because we're now leaving you by wishing you a happy Christmas, and thanks for listening to us. And we'll talk to you this day fortnight. We're off for the new year. Thanks.
Thanks, now.